today I'm going to discuss my 100-day project, have a bit of a reflect on how the 100 days went, possibly what I do differently next time, and which ones were my favourites. As always, if you like this video and would like to see more, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I think it's quite important when you've done a project like this to reflect on how it went, see what worked, what didn't, what you might do differently next time, and whether you would do it again. For what went well, I think planning and preparation went fairly well. I did well in the sense that I picked my 100 animals before the project started, so I had a think, I drew up a list, and I wrote down on a separate piece of paper each animal that I decided on. I wanted to pick a decent range so I didn't end up having like all birds or, I don't know, a particular type of animal. The advantage of then putting them on pieces of paper and putting them in a box so that I then didn't know the order of these animals was also important though, because it added a bit of spontaneity to the project. So although it was nice knowing that I had 100 animals, I could complete the project. I didn't have to go each day, oh gosh, which animal am I going to do, which one have I already done? I found it very useful to have that element of surprise as well, because it did make me curious the next day to go, oh, I wonder which animal I'm going to be stitching today. So that definitely helped, and I would recommend adding that element of surprise if you can. Something I didn't do quite as well with was planning the supplies. I had no idea what type of colours I was going to get through, which in hindsight was a bit naive because it was quite obvious that a lot of the animals were greys, browns, so really I should have pre-planned for those colours. I also almost ran out of fabric. It turned out I did actually have some more white calico in my stash that was the right weight, but I did end up ordering a couple of different fabrics online and I couldn't quite get the same type, so it was really lucky that I did find some more in my stash. But it would have helped if I just raided the whole of my stash from the start, cut out all 100 squares. I think the reason I didn't cut out all 100 squares was because I was worried that I might not finish the project, so I don't want to cut out 100, put that expectation on myself and the pressure to succeed, and then find out that I'd cut, you know, I don't know, 70 odd squares that I never ended up using for the project. To be fair, I probably would have used them to make cards, so it wouldn't have been a complete write-off. But anyway, I could have checked that I had enough calico even if it wasn't cut out. Obviously, lockdown and the pandemic did make it a bit more challenging to replenish these supplies, so I was quite lucky because Hobbycraft had a sale, or they keep having sales, so I did manage to replenish some of the colours, but it was quite hard to select them because sometimes they don't always look quite the same in person as they do online. So I did find that I'd selected a few shades of brown, but actually I had a huge gap still in my colour palette, so to speak, which I probably wouldn't have missed out on if I'd gone into a store. Likewise with the fabric, I could have just popped down to a local shop and chosen a medium weight bleach calico, but I had no idea on the fabric I begun on what weight that was, so even the GSM that they show on fabrics online, I had no idea what weight the one I had was. Perhaps I should have looked this up to see if I could have worked it out myself, but I didn't do that. So things I have learnt from this challenge. I have learnt that if you show up every day and do something for a set amount of time, you will definitely get results. I was slower at the start, however, I was using lower quality thread, and in the end I started using it less and less, and pretty much the latter ones aren't using the lower quality thread at all. I did the odd time just because I didn't have the right colour in the higher quality shades. But I tried to avoid it because, I mean, if you've seen any of the time lapses, I just kept having to rethread it. It would break, it would, you know, get all tangled up, and then I'd spend a lot of time rectifying that. So that's something else that I'd do in future. Definitely start off with better quality resources. Another point of reflection is that some days are harder than others. I did get into a routine. I found that the morning was best for me. Some days I just wasn't in the mood to do it in the morning, in which case I'd be quickly scrambling around doing it before bed, which is fine. You just have days like that, and I had to learn to accept that. I found this a really useful exercise in learning to pace myself. Having a chronic illness, I really do need to learn that lesson. I know that I can't just spend a couple of days solid sewing a lot of the time because it just exhaust me pretty much for the rest of the week. Having to pace myself and not knowing which animal was on the next day, so I couldn't plan for it, I found that quite challenging at the start, but I did get into a rhythm and I did have to face that and accept it. So in a way it worked really well that I hadn't researched all of the animals and got set templates straight away. It would have been a lot quicker if I'd done all that, but to be honest, I didn't have time before the challenge. At the start of the project, I found that I was a lot more hesitant. I was really worried about choosing the wrong colour, not stitching the outline correctly. I found that these worries dissipated further and further down the line. So probably the first 2 weeks were the only couple of weeks where I was really like, oh gosh, is this the right colour for this animal? I'm not sure, oh, should I have added that shading? By the time I got to the end, it was like, yep, okay, let's do this. That really helped. And it does show that exposure to a fear helps you overcome it. The 100-day project also showed me that it is essentially a habit. It's a great way to build a habit if you do end up doing the 100-day project. I've got to be honest, I think this particular project wasn't that sustainable for a long-term habit. I have taken a nice few days rest since finishing the 100th animal, and I'm quite enjoying having that bit of respite. However, I really do appreciate that it did make me sit at my sewing machine every day, which is something I don't normally do. I do have periods of time when I don't use my sewing machine at all. Sometimes I'll go months without doing free machine embroidery, so it was really nice to get back on board with that and get some results. Moving forward, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with the squares. I'm thinking either a quilt or a wall hanging. Probably a wall hanging, but I keep umming and ahhing about it. I was considering making individual cards or framing them, but I mean framing them would take up a lot more room than a wall hanging and would be a lot more expensive. And for cards, I think some of the animals might not work as well for that, and it also seems a shame in a way to split up the set. Moving on to my favourite ones. Got to be honest, I think my favourite one, and I think it was from day 2, is the emu. I'm not sure what it is about it, but I really like that one. A close second is the sea turtle, which was quite a challenging one to make. It looks like from the collage, which we'll see shortly, it was the longest to make, but I really enjoyed that one. And I quite like the peacock as well, actually, so I kind of named 3 for the favourite, but I think the emu is definitely my all-round favourite out of the whole project, which, yeah, ironically was day 2. Okay, so that's a wrap up from me, but what I will do is leave you with a collage of all of the videos running at the same time. So my partner was getting into a bit of video editing, so he has kindly edited this for me, and it just shows which ones take the longest as well, which is quite interesting. Thanks to everyone who has come along for the ride, and thanks for watching.